It's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank. And I mean, but with it being exhibition, it makes sense.
Like this. First of all, if you're a boxer and you're not taking notice of what Jake Paul is doing, you're worried about criticizing his boxing skills, then you're the fool.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big.
When two of boxing's most polarizing figures, YouTuber turned boxer Jake Paul and pound-for-pound star Gervonta Tank Davis, finally step into the ring, legends of the sport are already weighing in. Davis enters with knockout power, blistering speed, and proven experience against elite opponents. Paul, on the other hand, carries massive public expectations and a history of staging high-profile fights. Many predict Davis will showcase his trademark dominance with surgical precision and movement. Yet others argue that Paul's size, reach, and knack for shocking critics could turn this into the upset of the year.
You know what? Fair play. If he does go out and fight Anthony Joshua, which I wouldn't advise because that would be extremely dangerous, then fair play if he was to do that. And all the critics and people like myself would have to shut the hell up, because I always said he's looking for fights that were manufactured, looking for fights that were predetermined. And by that, I don't mean fake fights. I don't mean fixed fights. I mean fights where the odds are so stacked in his favor that of course he's going to win. And of course, we see this. The latest match that's going to go down November 14th at the State Farm Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. Jake Paul is taking on, you've seen it by now, Gervonta Tank Davis. A man that is a lightweight in boxing. Now, lightweight in MMA is 155 pounds. Lightweight in boxing, 135 pounds. Jake Paul, I think when he weighed in for Mike Tyson, was 227 pounds.
Official weight, 227.2 pounds.
That is, if I'm not mistaken, a 92-pound weight difference. Almost a 100-pound weight difference. It's insane. Let's say he comes in at 200 pounds. It's still a 65-pound weight advantage, which is absolutely ridiculous. How can you be out there claiming to want to fight the best people on the planet and then going out there and taking on a guy that is maybe 92 pounds heavier, that is at least 65 pounds heavier than you? That is called one thing. That's called being a bully. It was bad enough when he fought Mike Tyson, a man that was 58 years old, and he was walking around like, I just beat the man on the planet. I just destroyed Mike Tyson and went out there and I beat him, and him and his brother are all celebrating and shit like that. It's like, dude, what are you doing?
In a surprising twist, the fight's location has shifted. Instead of Atlanta, Jake Paul will now face Gervonta Davis on November 14th at the Kaseya Center in Miami. MVP Promotions tweeted, "The war is no longer in Atlanta. Jake Paul vs. Tank Davis is taking over Miami. Same date, same fight, new city. The bout will stream worldwide on Netflix." Officially labeled as an exhibition, the matchup raises eyebrows due to the stark size disparity. In his last fight, Paul weighed around 199 lbs at cruiserweight, while Davis has recently fought at 135 lbs. Because of this gap, Davis's WBA lightweight title will not be on the line.
Boxing fans are losing their minds over this Jake Paul versus Tank Davis fight. And honestly, can you blame them? Why would Tank agree to this? I mean, look at the graphic. Jake is 6'1", 199 pounds with a 6'4" wingspan. Tank, 5'5", 133 pounds, a 5'7" wingspan. Tank fighting me would be a fairer matchup. We're basically the same size. And you wonder why fans think Jake's fights are rigged? Because every time we see some nonsense like this, it feels like WWE with boxing gloves. Here's the kicker though. Jake threatened to sue anyone who calls his fights rigged. Yeah, you know, the same guy who preaches freedom of speech now wants to ban opinions. After that clown show with Mike Tyson that left everyone scratching their heads. Maybe, and I'm just throwing it out there, if your own management company wasn't promoting and sponsoring your fights, fans might actually believe what they're watching. Until then, don't be mad that people are skeptical. Be mad that your boxing career looks more like a scripted reality TV show.
Despite the hype, many key details remain unclear. There has been no confirmed contract weight, round length, or clarity on whether the fight will follow standard professional boxing rules. This uncertainty fuels debate over fairness, safety, and the credibility of boxing's weight class system. For many observers, the event feels more like a crossover spectacle than a legitimate championship contest.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're gonna do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're gonna spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skill, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. No, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Hank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Terrence Crawford has voiced skepticism about the matchup, mainly because of the size difference. He sees it less as a true competition and more as a spectacle dressed up as a fight. While Crawford acknowledges Davis's explosive talent and world-class skill set, he warns that Paul's larger frame could be a serious factor. If Paul lands clean, Crawford believes the momentum could shift instantly. Still, he remains doubtful the fight will unfold under typical professional standards, insisting the weight gap undermines its legitimacy as a clash between equals.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over with.
Undefeated star Shakur Stevenson views the fight as an unfair challenge, especially for Davis given Paul's size advantage. However, Stevenson believes Davis's technical brilliance, ring IQ, and precision will allow him to dominate with relative ease. He expects Davis to rely on movement and fundamentals rather than chasing a knockout. In Stevenson's eyes, Paul simply lacks the boxing refinement to handle Tank's speed and skill. While he criticizes the matchup as a spectacle that disrespects boxing's traditions, Stevenson is convinced Davis remains levels above Paul in pure ability.
Case here, when you've got what is like a 70-pound difference between these two guys.
I mean, size will play some part of the fight, but if I'm thinking like I'm Tank, I'm probably just gonna go out there and try to outbox him and use my knowledge and IQ against him. So I can see Tank just outboxing him and making it real easy.
Is there any way you could, any realistic or legitimate way in your mind you could see Jake Paul winning a fight against Tank?
No.
No way.
Nope.
Not a lot of people have talked about Jake and said he's got good power. Not even and I get anything could technically happen, but you don't even see a realistic shot where he could land one big punch and Tank being so much smaller, he just can't handle the power.
Nah, not at all. I think Tank is he's been boxing his whole life. Been boxing since a kid, so I doubt like that's gonna be an issue or problem. I think Jake is good for where he's at, but I think it's just levels.
What do you think about the rumors of Tank and Jake fight?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. He called cap on it. So if you gonna call cap and say I'm not who I say I am, come prove it. I think it's dangerous for him to go back in there and fight Lamont. I think Lamont is a hell of a fighter. I can see that going left. So he better be on his A game.
MMA legend Daniel Cormier takes a more balanced stance. He credits Jake Paul for daring to face a fighter of Davis's caliber, acknowledging both the risk and the potential reward. Yet, he highlights the glaring mismatch in size, stressing it's hard to call the fight fair by boxing's normal standards. Cormier makes it clear that Davis is the superior boxer in every technical category, which puts enormous pressure on Paul. He also reflects on what each fighter stands to lose. For Paul, a defeat could damage his credibility. For Davis, losing to a much bigger opponent could harm his legacy. While Cormier leans toward Davis based on skill, he admits Paul's size makes the outcome unpredictable.
I swear to God, I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas. When Luis told me Gervonta Davis is fighting Jake Paul, I said, get the bleep out of here. I said, you're a bleep liar. Jake Paul is fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. There's one problem. He fights at 135 pounds. Gervonta Davis is that much better than Jake Paul at boxing. But Gervonta Davis in his last fight weighed 133.8 pounds. And I'm not over here in the business of just crapping on Jake Paul. I am much more respectful of what he's starting to build as a professional boxer. You're fighting a guy that's better than you. He's just much smaller. But that guy, because he's better than you, what if he wins? Everything Jake Paul has done is wiped completely out. Gervonta Davis loses to Jake Paul. Obviously, it's going to hurt who Gervonta Davis is, but he lost to a guy that's going to be upwards of 70 pounds bigger than him when he steps into the boxing ring. But I will tell you this right now, without a shadow of a doubt, I will watch this. Tank Davis is 30-0-1. You want to talk about Jake Paul fighting a real boxer? That's a real boxer. You can't make this stuff up, man. It's true. They're fighting.